This is Guitar Business Radio, the podcast for the business of guitar. No reviews, no demos, no idle chatter, just useful dialogue and information to help you get the most out of your guitar-related business. Whether you're a guitar builder or a guitar player or just something in between, this is for you. Now, here's your host. Oh, wait, it's me, Jeffrey D. Brown. So let's get to it. From Guitar Business Media, welcome to episode 28 of GBR, where today we'll be changing things up just a bit as we bring you absolutely no reviews, demos, or idle chatter. You should have no trouble finding that elsewhere, but in the meantime, we have a very special guest with us today and someone I've personally been a fan of for a lot of years, the great bass player, you know him, Nathan East. You've seen him with Eric Clapton for over 3 decades, as part of the great jazz group Fourplay for nearly as long, and so many others. And now, in addition, as a solo recording artist in recent years. And there's much more to his career in this interview that I'm sure you're going to thoroughly enjoy. So keep your headphones on, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. By the way, this episode of GBR is brought to you by Guitar PR. And in fact, they're paying me a lot of money to say nice things about them in this little commercial spot. Now, in full disclosure, many of you know that Guitar PR is in fact a separate division of Guitar Business Media, the owner of this show. And so it's unlikely that I would not say good things about them, whether they pay me or not. But the truth is that over the last 10 years, Guitar PR has developed a finely tuned set of structured media and marketing services designed especially for smaller guitar-related companies. And notice I use the word smaller, which could mean just about anything. That's deliberate. There are many definitions and interpretations of the word small, and we want to keep all the options open for those who are focused on their business destination. If you're looking to increase your sales and grow your guitar-related business, you owe it to yourself to spend several days, or at least a few minutes, finding out more at guitarpr.com. We'll be glad you did, and we think you will be too. And by the way, if you're interested in this commercial spot for your company, visit our website at guitarbusinessradio.com and click on Sponsorship. Now back to our regularly scheduled program already in progress. And you know, 75% in 1 year is amazing, but can it be repeated? Well, that's the big question, and we'll just have to wait and see. But in other news, it was another relatively quiet week in politics, not much going on to speak of, so we really have nothing to report on that front. If you see or hear of anything out of the ordinary, just let us know. Now, some of you have been asking, what the heck happened to The Shorts? You know, the segment where we feature relevant and interesting news briefs for your spontaneous consumption. Well, like we said a while ago, there will be nothing in the shorts while we continue to work on the launch of Guitar Business Daily. That's our real-time companion website to our upcoming magazine, Guitar Business. And as usual, we'll be keeping you posted on that progress. And while we wait patiently for all of that to happen, it's now time for us to do something completely different. Well, if you've been listening to music during the last 30 plus years or more, the chances that you've not heard Nathan East on bass are quite slim. He's enjoyed an extraordinary career recording and touring with some of the best known artists in the business, like Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Kenny Loggins, and so many more. I don't have time or room to mention them. Of course, he's a founding member of the jazz group Fourplay, and his record and performance appearances number in the thousands. There's so much to tell. It's better that we just bring him on so he can tell us about all that himself as Nathan East joins us right here and right now. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for taking out the time of your busy schedule to join us here on Guitar Business Radio. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. Great to stop by and see you here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, diving in, as we say, you know, you got a pretty early start in the business. And
my goodness.
I always like to begin with something that we refer to as foundational. And so I'm wondering what you can tell us about those early years in terms of the things that you might perceive to have had a lasting effect on your career in later life.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is picking up a bass in the church. 14 years old, if I were to rewind back then, and I remember the day, and there was a little kind of a Gibson, I think it was a red bass sitting on a bass stand at the altar, and my brothers were playing in the folk masses in San Diego with my brother Ray, who's now a Monsignor, has his own parish in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Ray East, and then David East, my big brother, he was playing guitar. So I was kind of tagging along with those guys, and there was this bass, and hey, I wonder if I could pick this up. Whose is this? And I picked it up, and immediately felt this kind of this spiritual energy and sort of a power, and also I just felt very familiar to me for whatever reason, and it was just something that I thought, there's something going on here. And literally 2 years later, I was on tour with Barry White and the Love in the Middle Orchestra, playing with Apollo Theater and Madison Square Garden and Cobo Hall in Detroit and all around the country. And I thought, at such an early age, I'm just thankful that I was able to hone in on what I would do, for the next several decades.
And was it pretty much apparent to you at that time that, that was the direction you were going to go?
Yeah, I was pretty sold. I mean, I did go to school, UC San Diego, and got my degree in music. And actually, I was starting my master's program when one of my instructors, Bert Turetsky, he just said, you should move to LA and make some money, and so he and Cecil Lytle, who is another instructor there, still mentors to this day. And, I moved to LA, and next thing I know, phone was ringing. I'm in the studio with these people like Quincy Jones and
small time guy,
small. No, I mean, and these are people that I read about. And I used to get Downbeat in all the music magazines,
sure, of course.
And so by reading the articles, you'd kind of get a little preview of what these people liked. And I remember Quincy. It stuck with me for a long time, making a statement. He said, "I'd rather have a guy that's not as good a player as another guy that's a diva, in the studio, So, in other words, his check your ego at the door and not have a guy with an attitude. I mean, that was one of the things that I think helped him to make such great music, because everybody's not only were they skilled proficiently, but their energy and the spirit of what they brought to the equation was so strong."
So again, there's, and we talked about this earlier, there's so much that has gone on in your career, but I wanted to kind of focus in. I mean, you were a pretty busy performer in the later 70s and into the mid 80s.
Right.
Did you have a vision of what your career would look like down the road at all? And if so, did you have any sense at all of how you were going to get there?
I'm not sure if anybody really has that kind of vision. I would be, I think I'd be making it up if I said I had a vision of what has happened. Of course, I would sit there and dream and living in San Diego, which was just striking distance from Los Angeles, I could kind of look up and just dream about, how great would it be to work with this person. And so I just kind of had a lot of dreams.
Well, that's kind of a vision though, too, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so the thing that I knew was imperative was to prepare myself, and to go to this LA music scene, ground zero mecca for music, and to be prepared for whatever it was going to take, So I feel like I was able to hone my skills. I got a degree in music, so I could read, I could play upright, electric, and I felt like my toolbox was fairly full when I got to LA.
And how old were you about the time that you got to LA? Roughly speaking?
So roughly, I actually started. I graduated early from high school, so it gave me, and I got into kindergarten early. So by the time I was 16, I was, in college, and so I think it was like 18, 19 years old. I was going up to LA and doing those sessions.
Wow.
And I'll never forget playing the Hollywood Bowl with Hubert Laws.
Oh man. So lots of stuff going on at still a relatively early age. So now you can say you've been doing this 40 years and you're still a young guy.
Well,
like me.
Thank you.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's bless her soul, Aretha Franklin. We lost her, and I was just thinking to myself, how old, you say, oh, gone too soon. B.B. King became a dear friend, and I remember the loss when he passed away. Thinking to myself, oh man, I'm not ever going to hear that one blues note played that way again. And but Les Paul was, I think, in his 90s when he passed, and so I feel like, of course, gone too soon, but at the same time, look at everything that these people did in their lifespan.
Well, it's like most of these folks love what they do, and that's so important. And you got to do that. You got to do that first, and you got to do it well. And I always think that if you've got those two things going for you, you'll figure out a way to make it pay. In one form or another. But
I think those of us that get to do this for a living, and this is sort of our life, I always say, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life, and I love what I do, and I do what I love, so.
And you do it well, and as a result of all that, you're going to live longer. And that's why I say that, I'm maybe just a bit older than you, but we're still in the throes of middle age, so I'm sticking with that story, and I'm going with that.
No, absolutely. And I think the bar keeps moving, nowadays everybody seems to be a lot healthier, and all those things that folks could get away with many years ago, don't seem to be. I mean, I think most people are clean as a whistle these days.
It's very different. It's very different. Yeah. And like I said, we'll live longer. I've already outlived my dad, and of course my dad should have lived longer. But in that generation, they did not take very good care of themselves. But let's move on. We have a lot to talk about, and I want to try to cover as much as we can. So this is kind of the part of the show where we start to get into what people have referred to as the inside baseball stuff with this show. And, by the mid 80s, you'd already been associated with many, many big names in the business. Not much further down the road, you hooked up with this guy, Eric Clapton.
I've heard of him.
Small guy. and that band and that relationship obviously has gone on for a long time. And I think that's probably where I first saw you a long time ago. But I'm curious about what you might be able to tell us a little bit about the business side of that gig, because that's kind of what we are here. We're a business skewed show. So what can you tell me about how that transpired, and then secondarily, what it did for your career?
Well, I mean, Eric is one of the most important, I think, musical figures. And I can remember, being in my bedroom with the blacklight poster with Cream.
Sure, yeah, I was there.
Playing Sunshine of Your Love.
Yes.
And it just, I turned the lights off, and the music just took you somewhere else, which I can remember like it was yesterday, and I'll never forget, kind of getting the call and hooking up with Eric. And he's always been, I love his curiosity in music, and his his understanding and awareness of what's going on around the world of music. And so I, obviously any kind of interest in what I was doing just felt, extremely complimentary, and he did become a dear friend, like a brother early on. And to this day, just one of my favorite people, closest friends, and I think very important, still relevant in music, and just one of the artists that I aspire to be like, where every note means something, and it really just started, musical relationship, friendship, and from there it just goes, and you go a day at a time.
Yeah, and that's how it progresses. Was there anything about getting into that was? Were there any challenges at all? Was there anything on the business side that became complicated at all, or was it a pretty straightforward deal?
I think it's pretty straightforward. And it's interesting you say that, because my son Noah, who we just sent off to UC Berkeley and got him set up, he's plays piano and really a wonderful musician. Yeah. But he's also studying business. Mm-hmm. And so what I feel that a lot of musicians, because you hear these horror stories, they ended up without anything. And so I think business is something that, sports figures, basketball players, and these guys that kind of come into large sums of money haven't really taken time out to learn about, because of their kind of hyper, skills that they, sure, they in their instrument or whatever they do.
That's the focus. That's the so strong of a focus,
Yeah, you've focused so much on that you allow yourself to maybe be taken advantage of. And the stories, there's just too many stories about that. So from a business standpoint, I think for me, it's always been one of those things where, I've, again, having a good solid education and just having parents that, had you keep your feet solidly planted on solid ground. I've had a chance to just, make some moves that I feel were, I can remember buying my parents a house when, that was one of my dreams. As soon as I made anything, that was the first thing I was going to do to prove to them that, when they always said, "Oh, you need something to fall back on,"
Yeah,
so
that's right.
If I was able to buy them a house, that kind of, that argument kind of went away.
That must have been a spectacular feeling.
Oh my goodness. It was literally, the best feeling that you can ever have. And I remember too, when buying my mom a Volvo, when she used to love that car, and then there goes my Volvo, so I rolled up on her birthday with a big, huge bow, and she,
nice.
She started crying, and those are the moments in your life where you just think, who gets to do this, and so, but apart from that, the love of playing and the love of music is really the first thing that I focus on, so sure. I think everything else takes care of itself, without too much pomp and circumstance,
Yeah. Well, on a similar track, and again, I mean, I could pull these stories from all over the place here, but you obviously, anybody who knows, you've had a long run with Fourplay, one of the great groups of, and one of my favorites for a long time.
Thank you. And one of my favorite experiences as well.
Sure. And I mean, you're a founding member. I was reminded as I was kind of doing my homework a little bit here that you'd spent some time working with Toto as well.
Yes. Well, if you can, first of all, getting back to Fourplay, if you can imagine a guy who was in a sort of a top 40 band that played 7 songs from Harvey Mason's Funk in a Mason Jar in our set, and a guy that transcribed Bob James solos and knew them note for note on everything he did, and a guy that was following Lee Ritenour very closely. To be in a band with these guys was again another one of those things that I never could have planned, but by sort of being in the area. And I think when Bob James went to make his album called Grand Piano Canyon back in early 90s, around 90, 91, and when he asked Lee Ritenour and Harvey Mason for a recommendation, fortunately for me, they both said Nathan East.
Yeah. So, beautiful.
So, I mean, that again, I spend most of my time being humbled and honored by the call,
Sure. Well, I mean, you almost have to be, you have to be, especially when, I think there's a point too when you come to realize what you've done. And at that point, and I've had some of those experiences in different ways, because I know it on a very small scale. But when you start to get a lot of accolades, and just really positive stuff, that, if you're a person of any kind of principle, it's kind of almost kicks in automatically. You get the humble factor just kind of clicks in, and it's an amazing thing. But my question was going to be that you've been part of some extraordinary groups and acts, and we'll get into some of your own stuff as well. But I was kind of wondering if you ever had any conflicts with scheduling or juggling all of this stuff, and if so, how did you deal with it? How did you make it all work?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to make it work, and there have been a few times that it was like now what do I do, because I have 2 things booked on the same time, same place.
Right.
And one of the things I've been trying to master, I still haven't been able to do it, is be in 2 places at once. And but I'm working on it.
And if you get that worked out, take a run to the patent office on that.
I am working on it, but there was there have been times when either sessions have been booked or a concert or something has been booked where I, something overlapped and I had to figure out how to make both work, and fortunately it hasn't been a lot, but I'll never forget the first time Kenny Loggins asked me to go on tour with him. The day I left, Quincy Jones called me to play on the Michael Jackson Off the Wall album. And I was thinking, oh no. And I literally was just thinking, first of all, here I am on a gig that I absolutely love, because I love Kenny's music and he's a great guy. So I'm on one dream gig, and then the phone rings and another one, comes through. And this has been happening to me throughout my career. When I was in college, 3 weeks before I graduated, at the recommendation of Billy Cobham, who I did a clinic with when he came to San Diego, John McLaughlin called me and said, "Hey, I heard about you from Billy, and can you go on the road with me? We leave Friday, though, So I was thinking, wait a second. I've been at university all these years. I'm about to graduate in 3 weeks. And all my friends, of course, said, "You're nuts. Go out, leave, go." But the one person, apart from my parents, was my grandmother. She said, "If you don't do but one thing for me, graduate from college, then," he said, "you'll have that behind you." And I thought, you know what? She helped me with my decision. So I stayed. And of course, he was very gracious. And when he came through town, he always called me. But it's been happening kind of like that, throughout my career. And so, it's one of those mixed blessings.
It's not a bad sign, is it?
It's not a bad sign. And again, it's like, I guess it's like if you play tennis or any sport, anything like that kind of helps you, gives you a little confidence and helps you to get better, and that's all I'm really trying to do to this day, is just like keep getting better and keep the game up.
And you're having fun at it. And it's pretty hard.
Having a blast.
I mean, it just, it's obvious. I jotted something down here, and I almost had missed it. And it's a really significant part. I have some other things I want to get into, but before I get there, I wanted to talk about your solo work and the albums that you've done. And this was something that really didn't come about, but only in the last few years, right?
Right.
Your first, and you've done 2 or 3 albums of your own now.
Yes, and I started actually because this was the running joke in Fourplay, because everybody had their own solo albums, and for 20 years the guy said, Nate, when are you going to make your own solo album? And of course, with the golden handcuffs of doing all these great tours and out running globetrotting with Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, George Harrison, Toto. Yeah, I mean, it's just so with all these great gigs I had going on, there was never any time left for my own projects. So finally, and teaming up with the Yamaha Entertainment Group label, my friend Chris Giro started that, and so it was a very natural progression, to go in and I remember just what a great feeling it was to be able to go from now having your name on the back of thousands of records to
and literally thousands.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And I never really stopped to kind of look back and see, but as the years go by, that's just by sheer amount of time the volume picks up. So
and I know that I've read that it's in the thousands. So
it's somewhere in there. One of these days, I'm gonna try to maybe put it all together. But in the meantime, I just keep.
Does that mean there's a book in the offing there someplace?
You know what? There is very much that possibility.
I would think so. I would certainly think so. Let's change it up a little bit, and I want to get into some of the business aspects that are associated with your career. And there's obviously many. So let's start, if we can, with your relationship with Yamaha.
Right. Well, that goes back a number of years to probably 1980 when Abraham Laboriel put the first Yamaha bass that I ever played in my hands. I went to a session that he was doing. I think it was with Lee Rittenauer and Dave Grusin and those guys. And they were at A&M Studios. And, of course, his playing is magnificent.
I remember seeing him a lot in the 70s, it seems like. And I'm trying to remember who I saw him playing with, but I used to see him a lot in those days. And he was...
Yeah, I used to go by a club called the Baked Potato in Los Angeles and hear those guys play. And it was, just jaw-dropping every time, to watch him. And in those days, it was Larry Carlton, Greg Matheson, or Lee Rittenauer.
Oh, yeah, all those guys. I remember all the guys. We used to go to Dante's, too, out in...
Dante's as well, right down the street.
And really early on, we used to go see Joe Pass play.
Oh, my goodness, yep. Amazing. I saw him and Ray Brown playing.
Yes.
Over there, and it was just, again, in silence, just thinking, I want to be good.
So you got involved with Yamaha, and you have a signature. You have some signature instruments and things like that. That's been going on for quite a while, is it not? That's
been going on for quite a while. I mean, we developed my signature 5-string bass, the BBN E2. We started in the 80s, and so we really refined it, and now it's become it's so much fun to go around the world and then run into bass players that are playing it at a club or somewhere and see it being played. And when you think about relationships, this is a very long relationship, and relationships have always been very important to me anyway, because it's a small world, it's a small business, and so you want to have, we talked about when I made my solo album, every single call I made, people said, when do you want me to show up? So when I went in the first album, Michael McDonald and Sarah Bareilles, Stevie Wonder, I mean, these people were just there, and it was amazing. Eric Clapton, Phil Collins. So I feel like it's a business not only of the musical relationships, but just personal relationships as well.
And has that relationship with Yamaha yielded tangible benefits for you over time? I mean, and was there a connection when you went to do your album, when you went to the Yamaha Entertainment Group as well? Is there some kind of a relationship connection there at all, or just?
Absolutely. No, it's all, for instance, Chris Giro, I'm known for probably 20 years. And so we not only did the record, but we do most of the Yamaha corporate shows that he produces. He asked me to be musical director for, and again, so many great artists participate in these concerts, and these artists have been with Yamaha for forever. Elton John and people like Natalie Cole and Vince Gill and just Jason Mraz. A lot of people have so there's a relationship with them, and so yes, absolutely, the long relationship has it's paid dividends in many ways.
Yeah. And you're still playing the same basic guitar? Is that your primary instrument that you play?
Yes, that's the primary instrument I play. You'll see me with it on stage. I just was playing at Hyde Park last month, 65,000 people with Eric Clapton, and that's my instrument of choice.
And that's not much of a thrill to get out there and do that, is it?
Oh my goodness, no, not at all. It's only surreal.
Yeah.
And Carlos Santana sat in with us on the last song. I mean, it's just like I'm standing there thinking to myself, this is your life. This is what you get to do. It's such a privilege.
It's like, dude, there's a book.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's sometimes I look up and I just think to myself, that I want to be of service now, because this is all like a gift, and so many people have picked up instruments and wanted to be heard. And I feel like sometimes I just wake up and say, wow, how did I get so fortunate, so blessed, to do what I do?
Well, I would say that you had a vision, you had integrity, you kept your eye on the destination, but you kept all the options open on how you were going to get there. So I will continue to validate my words one way or another.
My dad said, always have something to fall back on. And I think I kept hearing that in the back of my head.
And that's a variation on it. I would say that's fair to say. But I think this gives us a good segue in talking about something that I wanted to talk to you about, and that's your involvement with Artist Works. You've been there for some time now. And of course, we interviewed their CEO, Patricia Butler, not very long ago. Wonderful interview and a terrific lady. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about how that works for you and what you've hoped to achieve with it.
Well, the bottom line there at Artist Works, which is a fantastic company, and Patricia and David Butler, who have become dear friends, and really came up with a great idea. And again, I think that was born out of necessity. David Butler plays guitar, and I think he used to take online lessons. He'd probably have the story a little better than me, but from what I gather,
I've heard it from Patricia, not directly from David. But.
Right. Well, from what I gather, he took online lessons or he had somebody kind of teaching him long distance over the phone or via internet or whatever. And he comes from an internet background. And so I think it clicked with him. It's like, hey, what about a company where you could actually sort of like Skype or where you could send videos back, and then actually they patented the video exchange program where the students send a video of themselves to the teacher, and then you look at their finger position and listen to what they're playing, and then you can send a video back to critique, and that's part of the program, along with quite a bit of curriculum for beginners, intermediate, advanced. And so what they've come up with is a brilliant sort of online way of learning. And I know myself, people always used to come up and ask me, do you teach? And as much as I wanted to, I was just too busy from a schedule standpoint to schedule it in. But with this program they've set up through ArtistWorks, you can do it at your own pace, your own tempo. And so from wherever you are on the planet. So now as one of the faculty members there, I have students from all over the world, and it's so much fun sometimes when I go somewhere and, here I am, Istanbul, Turkey, walking down the street, and if somebody comes up to me, oh, I'm one of your students at ArtistWorks.
That's got to be wild. Wow.
Yes. And they have quite an impressive list of faculty. And so, anybody can really learn from any instrument, from harmonica to guitar to piano to drums, and they have quite an impressive list of instructors over there.
And is it something you're enjoying doing? It sounds to me like it is, right?
And at the same time, I'm loving it because I've always been about education. I've always been about sharing knowledge and wisdom and giving back, So in my school, for instance, it's the Nathan East Online School of Electric Bass. Not only do I kind of try to teach about the notes, but I try to teach my students about my instincts and my thought patterns in choosing my notes and choosing the register that I play in, and just imparting things that are a little even beyond the academia of the instrument.
Well, being able to get that kind of insight from somebody of your stature is got to be really quite compelling.
Well, it's also fun to listen to some of the students from around the world. I have one of my new students from Indonesia. He sends me, and he's actually a really good player. He has one of my signature basses, and it's exciting for me to become friends and be able to interact with people from all the corners of the world and places that I get to visit. And it's for me, it's just a lot of fun. I think this is something that would not have been possible 20 years ago. And I've been with ArtistWorks now, probably been doing it for the better part of a decade, and it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, you were kind of one of the earlier participants in it, right?
Right. Yeah. And I can remember when I signed on, they were just kind of getting started. So it was a relatively new model, but with instructors like Paul Gilbert teaching guitar, and actually my dear friend Chuck Loeb came on as a guitar teacher, jazz guitar, and rest his soul. And but Eric Marienthal and just a lot of great teachers over there.
And there's a lot of diversity there too, and they're going in a lot of different directions, and it's a real solid approach, it seems to me. I haven't actually seen the mechanics of it. I mean, I understand it and certainly heard a lot about it, but does it take a lot of your time? I mean, are you do you have the time? Obviously, you've made the time to do it, right?
Yes, it's definitely, for me, with the travel schedule and everything, it's kind of a time management challenge,
right?
Because I want to take the time to get back and impart as much good wisdom as I can. So I do my lessons from here at home. A lot of I've seen Paul Gilbert doing a lesson from the back of a taxi cab.
Is that right?
Which is great. There he is riding down the streets of Tokyo.
That sounds like a promo item. I'm expecting to see a video from ArtistWorks it's got him doing that. It's a great idea.
Well, I invite everybody to log on to their website, artistworks.com, and just have a look at some of the instructors, and I think it's a brilliant program because again, it puts us in touch with students from around the world that otherwise we just wouldn't have that opportunity.
Fabulous. Listen, I got to touch on something that I discovered about you that I never knew, and I saw this on your website that you've done some, I'm going to say dabbling because I don't know how big it is, but doing voiceover work. and I got to tell you, I listened to some of the tracks on it, and you're very, very good at it. I mean, it's just terrific. And I was just kind of curious, is that something you're still pursuing, or is it just something that comes up now and then? But I mean, you've really got a knack for it.
Oh, thanks a lot. Well, as I look at your studio here, I see all these beautiful microphones, and I might have to come down here and and work sometime. But it's a lot of fun. The voiceover work, since I've had I've gone way beyond my 10,000 hours in any studio. And so that part comes naturally, and it's like music. It's a lot of fun. And while he was still with us, the great Don LaFontaine.
Oh, sure.
Who was Mr. Voiceover. And I think anybody would agree he was probably the poster child for voiceover. Yeah. And he was a dear friend. His wife, Nita, is my dear friend. They have a wonderful family. And we used to, Nita and I worked together a lot, and Don would come along and he'd always say, "I like your pipes." Kid, I like your pipes, and so he was actually working with me before he passed, just giving me some pointers and heads up. And then I've since taken some classes, and so now Sandy Shore, has me as one of the voices on smoothjazz.com global. And I
think that's where I heard it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've read for a few documentaries, and it's fun again, in a comfortable environment in a studio, and then just get to talking. I've always wanted to be, I think I'm a frustrated radio DJ with 23 minutes past the hour, 32 degrees.
Oh, you've totally got it. And that was kind of my thing too. I've told this story before. My dad was in radio, and I actually went to college, and I did radio in college, and came out of college, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And until I discovered I was going to have to go work in a small town in the middle of nowhere and part of the country I didn't know anything about, and at the same time make pretty much no money. And I said, I think what I'm going to do. I was about 23 at the time. I said, I think I'm going to work for a while, make some money, and then I'm going to come back to this.
Right.
And so the story is that I did come back to it, but it was 40 some years later doing this, so, wow. So I'm living that dream, podcasting,
absolutely.
So, but
well,
you're
right. There's a lot to be said. And whenever your voice can be heard, I feel like, everybody has a story. And so again, it feels like a privilege to me to be able to have my voice be heard, and it's a lot of fun. And as like you said, it's a little side hop.
That's the thing that I find. We're getting close to the end here, and I know we could go another 40 minutes, about talking about all kinds of stuff, but maybe we will at another time. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. While we're on the subject, I just want to give a shout out to Laurel Vanderland over at the Radio Ranch, who was my teacher over there, and John Kramer, who's been coaching me on some voiceover as well. So they may be listening. So thanks,
I hope so. I hope you'll tell them about this show, and they'll be listening for their plug.
Absolutely,
and we'll help out with that too. But look, I like to close our interviews with some perspective and inspiration. And I've probably said this many times, but you've had an extraordinary career so far. I think there's an awful lot that our listeners can glean from your success. I've been told, and you've kind of illustrated that you've really mastered the art of relationships. No question about it. So I want to ask you, how important is that? And what are a few of the things that you've done to solidify your career that other aspiring artists might also find helpful? Now, it's kind of a deep question, so I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think about it.
Well, it's easy. One of the easiest things to articulate is the fact that relationships are the basis, I think, for the earth spinning on its axis. Even astrologically, people, what was the relationship to the sun that this planet had? So for some reason, when people believe in the universe or what's going on around you or God or whatever you want to do, it all gets back to relationships, And so when I was growing up, I studied my parents' relationships, their relationships with the people that they worked with, and I'd listen to their stories as they got home about what somebody was or wasn't doing. And so that was my early clue that, relationships, whether it's a marriage or whether you're in a band. And I always, one of my biggest endeavors was to see how long I could go in this business, and when I first started, I started developing relationships, and it's just fantastic to look here, 3-4 decades later and have like the relationships just get stronger. And, even with my wife, who we just celebrated our 23rd wedding anniversary, and I met her at UCSD. So, I've known her for, north of 4 decades, and so I think that's really what, again, keeps us moving forward, because relationships have to develop just like anything else, and my relationship with my instrument, every time I pick up the bass, I realize how much there is to learn, how much more there is to know about this instrument. And if I only, if there were only more hours in the day, but however, that's where time management comes in. And, I literally wake up every day, especially since close friends like Chuck Loeb have passed away when we were born a day apart.
Wow.
I almost, so I almost feel like,
but there's a real connection there, probably, huh?
Oh my goodness, no! Without having the same blood running through our veins, I have no closer friend, And I think about him every day. I miss him dearly. We still play his music. He wrote for both my albums, and he just lives so profoundly in my heart, And every day, we lose somebody, and I look up and say, you know what? This is not a rehearsal. This is all we have. We have this one shot, this one day, and I really, start my days off after a period of meditation and a period of prayer, just really trying to make sure that I live up to my to the air that I'm privileged to breathe, and to whatever my purpose is here. But I just appreciate having a life of service. And again, getting back to your question about relationships, I think that's just a big, huge part of the whole thing.
It's the thing that kind of holds it all together in a lot of respects. It's it's the glue. A lot of these things.
When I was fortunate enough to become good friends with George Harrison and do his last tour with him in Japan, and he'd come to my house in Studio City, and he'd come and meditate in my living room, and I got to meditate with him when I'd go to England. He'd send a car, and I'd go over to his house in the country. It was just beautiful experience, and spend time. And actually, one of the most flattering things is my wife said when he passed, he was cleaning out his little meditation room, and she found a note that I had written him among some of his personal items, and I thought, my goodness, that to me, just, he another guy that lives in my heart forever, who's gone too soon, and a wonderful human being, and, I've had the rare opportunity to make music with at least 2 Beatles. Ringo, I played on his last couple albums, and hanging out in the studio, and he's got all these great stories about the Beatles when they were traveling through Germany and playing clubs until 4 a.m. And you think to yourself, I used to sit there in front of the TV watching, Ed Sullivan with a broom, pretending I was playing bass, and now it's just, living the dream. So I'm feeling very fortunate.
Yeah. It's an amazing story. And, I'm so thrilled that we had a chance to talk. And like I said, I hope that we can we can do this again and
absolutely
and catch up. And the next time I'm going to ask you about that fretless bass that's right behind you that I've been looking at all night.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. Oh yeah, no, they're amazing, you know, and these come from all over the world. I think this one I got in Indonesia. Playing it.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've been looking at it all night. And I said, I wonder what the hell that is.
Yeah, no, there's so many, and I just think music is one of the things that kind of glues us all together. You know, regardless of what corner of the world we're in, and I feel very fortunate that music has been my kind of ticket to seeing so many great places and meeting so many great people.
And the good news is you have a long ways to go. I know.
Well, listen, I'm going to be, you know, swinging as long as I can, and got some, you know, some fun shows coming up here too. So yeah, we're just keeping it going. And
I'm certainly going to, you know, be keeping an eye on it and finding whatever opportunity I can to come and see you play when you're here in the Southland. So again, Nathan, it's been fun.
Thanks, Jeff. You know, a pleasure.
We'll stay in touch and we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Thanks again. Have a great one.
Welcome back to the back of the show, where if you made it this far, you're probably willing to take a chance on unpredictable topics and discussion that you might not necessarily expect on a guitar-related show. Now, I have to say, my interview with Nathan East was a lot of fun and very enlightening. And because of his tight schedule, we had to do the interview late Saturday night. And you might not think that would be the ideal time to do a serious interview, but I can assure you we're not that serious, and it worked out just fine. In fact, we could have gone on a lot longer because there's so much to cover in this man's career. But I said, you know, maybe we'll have to do a sequel down the road since we've only got about an hour to work with here on each show. But even so, there's a lot of material in this interview. And I titled the episode Nathan East on Music and Relationships because if you look at the totality of his career, which is not easy to do because it's so massive, you'll see that his ability to create long-lasting relationships within the industry, and I suspect in other areas of his life, has really been one of the big factors in his incredible success. Of course, that's in addition to his tremendous talent as a musician and in so many ways a performer. And you know, it takes a lot of grounding and centering to be able to manage as busy a career and life as Nathan has. He's had a life that many would dream about, but he's lived it. Yet one thing I noticed is that there is no shortage of gratitude from Nathan East for the life he's been given. Obviously, it seems as though he's worked very hard to get where he is, but you probably heard him say at one point that famous line, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. And he's living proof. So there's a lot to learn from his approach to the business. You see a lot of people striving for success in this business and others, although it's probably a lot easier to find struggles than successes because the focus for many is often on the struggle for success. And you know, the more we focus on the struggle, the more we get of, you guessed it, the struggle. And that's just how it works. My view, which you've heard me spout many different ways, is that the struggle takes hold when we lose sight of our destination, whatever it is. And while it may change and evolve, maybe many times, having that sense of direction, even if you're not sure how you'll get there, helps to keep us grounded and centered as we go. Add to that principles of integrity, honesty, and gratitude for any and all good in your world, you're well on your way. If you have any thoughts on any of this, feel free to leave us a comment on the episode page on our website at guitarbusinessradio.com or connect with us through our contact page. Also, don't forget to engage with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, at Guitar Business, at Guitar Business. And we hope you'll share what we do and tell your friends about the show. Remember, GBR is available on virtually all podcast platforms and apps. So as always, stay positive, stay focused on your destination, and for sure, keep all the options open on how you're going to get there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on episode 29. And that's it for this episode of Guitar Business Radio. Thanks for being with us. You can stay tuned and stay in touch at guitarbusinessradio.com.